Good evening. The school committee to order Thursday, June 8th, 2023. First item of business is the recording statement.
Good evening. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording will contain your video stream and your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background, could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting should also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recording meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Thank you. Roll call.
Dr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Here.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Williman?
Here.
Ms. Kelly? Here. Ms. Cartier? Here. Ms. Chamberlain? Here. Ms. Cormier? Here. Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mr. Wiggler?
Here.
Ms. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Mr. Jean-Francois? And Mr. Chair.
Yes, here. Again, thank you for school committee members for moving around with the schedule, dealing with our one real item this evening is to interview a candidate, interim candidate for the interim superintendency here, July 1st. In your packet, at 6:45, Colleen will be here. 6:45. So the first, I just wanted to kind of go over the directions and what we have in front of us. So we're able to not only do our due diligence, but be able to help everybody be focused, be able to ask any potential clarifying questions. I'll walk through everything for all of us. So we have the agenda. The scoring rubric, this is just for, as you can see in the first item, is just a rubric to help you in evaluating a candidate's depth and breadth, how one communicates not only clearly, but also in substance in regards to the questions that are asked. There'll be an opening statement opportunity. And again, we also on the form, any follow-up notes, kind of keeps you, if you want to follow up, and I'll explain what the best way for us to do that. Just an example of question 1. Yeah, I asked Mrs. Chamberlain if she'd be willing to work with me, and she said she has been and will be and always has been. I will start the interview. I will do the opening, and I'll ask the first 5 questions. And then 6 through 10 will be asked through Ms. Chamberlain will ask Colleen the questions. And then we'll come back, wrap it up, and then come back to ask if there's any follow-up questions, clarifying questions from any member to Colleen. It's an easier flow to hold that, make your notes along the way, instead of through each question, well, what about this or that type of thing. It keeps the candidate, anytime they're interviewing, focused and what they need to do. It keeps us. I know it's a large committee. We have 13 people around the table here, but it's a very neat, thorough way of making sure people feel comfortable, and we're able to follow up if you so choose to, if you have any clarifying questions. I always, even when I did this in my previous life, there are questions you can't ask. We call them illegal questions. They're all going to be focused at the questions at hand. A couple things you can't say, gee, where do you live? That's an illegal question.
How old are you?
How old are you? I see that you work for us for, do we have anything else in the packet?
I do not.
Just that, okay. I see that you've worked here 5 years. Are you going to give us 5 more? Something like that. Those type of questions are not relevant to what's at hand. So the lines that we have on each question, that's for you to make your notes. And the rubric there to help you. It's literally not a numeric and say, okay, at the end of the thing, how many fours do we have, how many threes? No, this is a guide. It's more of a guide. There are 10 questions. And there'll be a time for a closing statement. Then when we finish the interview, we could have some discussion. Well, we'll do any clarifying questions. I apologize. Any clarifying questions. All I ask, just so we have a sense of order and respect, just kind of give me a nod. You know what I mean? If you a nod, so that you say, okay, Dave, you have a question? Colleen. So we're not like, you know, well, I'll jump in or I'll be after that. We'll have a nice flow to that. Are there any, let's see, I don't think I missed anything.
Mr. Chairman, would you
Yes.
like me to print out the application? I can print it quickly and give it to him.
Yes, please, that'd be great. I thought I apologize, we had that. I'd like the application there so you have that, so you have a frame of reference of our candidate.
Okay, so then after that, how does this flow?
After that, after Colleen leaves, I think she'll be done, the interview, then we can have a discussion. We can have a discussion if we feel comfortable as ourselves that we believe that we have enough to be able to potentially make a decision this evening. We can discuss this perspective and we'll see from there.
So will there definitely be a vote, I guess?
I would hope there would be a vote.
Okay.
The answer is yes. I would hope there would be a vote.
Will we make a motion before we have the discussion, or will we discuss and then?
We would discuss, then have the motion. Because technically we could have that discussion this way from the interview perspective.
Are you gonna collect these when we're all done?
Yes. You don't have to put your name on them, okay? That's, you don't have to clarify that, but I don't believe you have to put your name on it.
No,
No.
I think Jess has to hold them in sealed envelopes for a certain period of time. And then at that particular time, they would be destroyed because it is confidential.
Well, it is
Well,
public,
no,
it is public.
But
But if there was ever a potential legality issue, as you would, you know, that type of thing, you would have to have the records of that. So no, there are no, our names are not on them. Is there another question over here?
I was just gonna ask, so then we were expecting to vote on it tonight, but I think that's already been covered.
Yes. And then I would, the flow thereafter, if we do the vote, then there would be probably, I would think, another motion to be able to authorize the chair and vice chair to enter into negotiations to work with a contract for the interim superintendent. And that would be voted, I would hope to have that voted at the 20th meeting, because at the end of the day, it's not us that make that decision. It will work through it, but it would be the full school committee that would vote the contract. That's what we would do. Anything else? Okay. She'll probably be here momentarily. And if that's okay with the committee, I thought that, you know, I asked that if I could do the first 5 questions and then 6 through 10. Is that a nice thing? Rather than going around and having 10 people ask that type of thing and not knowing whose next question is going to be. You know, it's all those nonverbals in life that we learned, you know, for interviewing.
Good solid procedure, go with it.
And I know we did similar. Yes, sir.
Has Colleen been aware that does she know what the questions are gonna be?
No. But any superintendent candidate kind of knows the framework of what questions would be. And again, I thank all of you for doing your task, which was individually, and you ranked the questions. So that's how we ended up having a bank, because we had a bank of questions. So that's how that was determined. And as you will know, and as we'll hear, and we'll evaluate, the questions are all relevant to the work of what a superintendent would do in either an interim role or a full role. I apologize, I thought it was in the packet. I did want the application. You would have to know that her
We'll
background.
have a couple minutes at least to look.
Oh, yeah. It's written out that way. Just, it's, again, it's any packet you would have that. We did that 5 years ago
Got that
in the,
in the superintendent's.
screening committee that we had. Did you, how about you, Liam? Just a quick question, years ago? Did you also have that in the application and all that pieces with it?
Or,
The interviews you did with the superintendent?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, we had different blocks of questions as we worked our way through. The screening committee had certain questions, some filtered down, but others didn't. We asked school committee, same thing that you all did here. We asked school committee members to submit questions.
Exactly, it's like we did.
We chose some. So, yeah. But you're correct. This is not grading. I mean, this is not, oh, great answer, 5, or I don't like that answer, 1. Watch the demeanor of the person who's being interviewed and how she handles the question. Yeah. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Exactly. And that's exactly what our job too, is evaluating what they say and how they say it. So you're absolutely right. And it's Colleen, we said 6:45? Oh, shit, so she's in the building. So, yeah, if you want me to, would you like me? Okay.
She here?
Yes, she's. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll just wait for.
I'm excited about that.
Some reason it seems like there's even.
It's because we're sitting at a different.
A different way, and I know.
And until the lights start shining behind.
Move on.
I'm the one who's.
Okay.
I know, I should know. Muha. Good evening. Again, thank you for applying for the interim superintendency. We are human, water, paper, pencil, paper for anything that you need, if you need anything that. Also, we'll have the questions as well in front of you as we go through them as well. Rick? So just a quick protocol perspective. Everybody around the table. We don't have to. Good evening. I'll ask the first 5 questions. And then questions 6 through 10, Deb will ask.
Okay.
And then there will be time for, there'll be an opening, and we'll have an opening statement if you so choose to, and we'll have a closing as well. You can also have a closing statement as well. And then if there's any clarifying questions from any committee member, they'll have an opportunity to ask us as well. And if you have any questions for us at this juncture too, we'll also have that. And then the interview will be over, and then the school committee will be having discussion, and we'll be getting back to you ASAP. So I want to say, I know you're in the seat, and I'm just trying to say welcome.
Thank you.
And I'll start with the first question, well, really the opening statement,
Sure.
whenever you're ready.
Okay. So first, I just really want to say thank you for accommodating me last week.
No problem.
It just means everything and quite honestly speaks to why I would like the opportunity to have this position. So one thing I think you may be wondering about is, why didn't she apply before and why is she applying now? So I'd like to just sort of address that. I love what I do. Like, I love my job. And I feel like we worked really hard. I worked a lot with our principals, with our teacher leaders, our educators, to create a vision for professional development, for mentoring, for new curriculum implementation. And then the other aspect of my job, which is writing and securing grants and implementing what we're going to do with those grants. And quite honestly, there's a lot. Like, there's just a lot that I do. And I felt like I didn't want to step away from that. I've been doing it for 5 years. I feel like there's still so much more to be done. And I don't want to let people down that we've worked so hard to create some of the systems and structures that we have in place. So that is one of the reasons why I did not apply initially. And then I think what started to change my mind was thinking about Quabbin. So I came to Quabbin 5 years ago, and I had been in a district for a long time. So I had stayed in one district for a long time. I had become, I moved all the way up, teacher, literacy coach, administrator, building principal in my children's elementary school, if you can believe that. I had my son for 1 year. And I never really thought of leaving that district, but I felt like I had more to learn and grow and offer. And I was not looking anywhere. I really was not just looking for a position. But someone within the district called me and said, hey, Quabbin has this position. And, my mom is actually a graduate of Harvard High School. Fun fact. And for some of you who are from Barrie, my dad had his probably second job in Massachusetts at Beard Chevrolet downtown. So I had good friends that went to Quabbin and are very successful today. And I had good friends that sent their children to Quabbin. And I always paid attention to Quabbin because of how you value education. And I don't just mean for the students, but I mean for the educators. When I came and I thought, we had so much professional development opportunities to offer our teachers, that just says so much about the district. And I think the role of superintendent is a role that really creates the conditions, I hope to be able to create the conditions where our students and our educators can truly thrive. When I came to Quabbin, I immediately felt like I belonged. Everything from, the welcoming day for mentoring, and we have things here that, those of you who've been here for a while probably don't even realize that other districts don't have. First of all, a supportive school committee, it's a real thing. That doesn't happen everywhere. Unions that are really easy to work with, human resources, grounds and facilities that take such good care of our schools. That sends a message every day that it's important that we take care of the environment that our students and our educators work in. So that is, it became apparent to me that I just felt like I was waiting to hear someone who felt passionate about Quabbin and wanted to honor all the good work that's been done. I think what we need to do is take what we've done, and of course we want to move forward and we want to generate new ideas and we want to bring new things, but we can never forget the why behind some of the decisions and the history here in the district. And that is really what I hope to do and why I sort of changed my mind. Jess, I saw you looking at your watch. I probably have a time.
No. I made a weird noise. I wanted to be sure it was off.
Good. Thank you. Question 1. What are your core values that drive you as an educator, administrator? And what core values would you want to see with your team members and new hires?
So I think one of the things that is really important to me is this idea of treating others as you want to be treated. So I think it's really important that we remember that we are human service at the end of the day. We're working with humans. And whether we have conflict or we disagree, I think it's really important to understand and appreciate that our people are our greatest resource. So we need to model behavior. This is what I would hope to see within my team and my new hires, but we need to model behavior where we are treating others with kindness and respecting other people's perspective. We may not always agree, but it's how we approach things that really is going to make a difference. I think one of my other core values is around working hard. So we actually were doing strategic planning, and the woman we were working with brought this document to the table, and it said, work until you succeed. And I thought, I love that statement. I love everything about that statement. It's about not giving up. It doesn't mean that you don't change your path or there's not roadblocks, but really giving everything our all until we reach the outcomes that we're looking for. So I think that's something that I would look for in team members and new hires. And I think the other thing is maybe about listening for understanding. So I think when you are leading people, and I think this is even true of teachers, right? It's so important not to make assumptions when we're dealing with parents, when we're working with our educators. Whatever it is we're doing, that we're really listening to understand and we're asking those clarifying kinds of questions. And probably an example I could give you is when I was an administrator and I would evaluate our teachers. When I sat down with them after the evaluation, I would ask them 3 questions every time. But the first question that I asked them was, what were 3 key takeaways from the evaluation? So we would present them with a written evaluation, and then you sit down. Sometimes I get to sit down with them before we wrote it up, but oftentimes it was after. So they had time to sort of read this and process it. And one time, this teacher, who was a really great teacher, said to me, I say good job too much. And I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, what? That's nowhere, right? In this evaluation, I didn't write anything about that. So I said to her, well, tell me more about that. Why is that your takeaway? So I had captured the whole narrative from the classroom. So student says, teacher says, student says, teacher said. So my feedback was around naming and noticing the behaviors that students do in order to move them forward, right? And she did say good job a lot, but she wasn't understanding what I meant in the feedback. She was focused only on what the student said. And I think if I had not, so I said to her, okay, what does that mean to you? What do you think a next step would be? And she's like, well, I need to mix up what I say to kids. So, I shouldn't just say good job. I should say well done. And I'm like, So I realized then and there, right, like my feedback clearly wasn't clear, and her takeaway was completely different than I would have thought. So I just think that it's really important that we listen to understand where people are coming from, understand why they're thinking the way they do. I think that's really important. People have history. They come to things with different experiences, and we don't know that at face value.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 2. How would you develop, I'm starting again. How would you develop your plan to prepare for your role as interim superintendent? What would your priorities be for the first 90 days? Whom would you consider to be essential sources of information, critical friends, and strategic community resources?
I think one thing, I might have answered this out of order. Can I do that? So first I'll just start with essential sources of information and critical friends. So I mean, obviously I hope to rely on Sheila quite a bit. I mean, currently I probably walk down to her doorway 10 times a day. So I think that's really important. I also have friends and colleagues who are in superintendents in other districts. I have a very close mentor who was a previous superintendent. He's now retired. He actually mentored me through my principal program. I have another friend who's retired from DESE that I've worked really closely with. And, you know, I think the essential sources of information are school committee being one of those, our educators, our parents, our community, our stakeholders, our students are essential sources of information. And in my first 90 days, what I would hope to do is gather additional information. So I've been in a district where you change roles, and there are really great things about that. You know, I feel like I've worked hard to build my relationships. I have working knowledge of the district. I know the things that are happening. But I will tell you this, when you change roles, people's feedback to you changes. So when I was certainly an instructional coach, people told me different things. And then all of a sudden, when I became a principal, I was hearing sort of a whole nother level of things. And not only that, my perspective changed to what I was listening to. So in my first 90 days, I would really need to do some additional listening and seek that feedback. I also think that in my current role, I have not gone out into the community as much as I would like. So last night I attended the Hubbardston town meeting, or Monday night, I guess it was.
Yeah.
So those are relationships that I really need to build. And I would say, you know, I think school committee members could be really helpful to me in that role, as well as our building administrators who have existing relationships with parents and community members and so on and so forth. As far as developing my plan for the first 90 days, to prepare for my role as interim superintendent, in a way, I feel like I've been handed a gift because we've been working on our strategic plan all year. So while I have all this listening and learning to do, I also feel like we set goals for ourselves. We know what direction we're heading in. And I think that along with sort of listening and learning in those 90 days, we'll be having our administrative summit. We're going to be planning for the year forward. We're going to be trying to put some of those goals and priorities into our, calendar and planning that we do. So that is how I'll go about that.
Thank you. Question 3. How do you use data to drive your decision-making processes? Please provide us examples applied to budgetary considerations, curriculum adjustment or enhancement, and personnel staffing changes?
This is a great question. And I want to say, I think it's really important to use our data. Data comes in many different sources. So when we embark upon the budgeting process, I think one of the first things we do is we look to the building level and we say, you know, what is currently working and what are our needs? We can only identify those needs if we have some sources of data. So, you know, some things we can look at, we do, sorry, I am like a reader for reading, but not to look at you. So some of the sources of data we have is we do benchmark data, we have common assessments. So academically, we have lots of data that we look at. That data gives us a lens into what is working and what isn't. So for curriculum, we can look at the data, but we also have to ask additional questions, right? So how does the data match up to what we're seeing in classrooms? What are the staffing patterns like, and how might that impact that student achievement data? So it's really looking at multiple layers as we do things. And you know, one of the areas that I think is a rich opportunity for growth for us is around special education. So currently, our students with disabilities are not performing at the same you know, level or rate as our students without disabilities. And what's really intriguing about that is that we provide our students with disabilities more intensive intervention. So we do that because we hope to accelerate their growth. So we just actually wrote a grant to implement co-teaching next year, which would mean there'd be a regular educator and a special educator in the classroom. And so we're really, I was just in my office writing this, so this is actually a really timely question. So we've identified 3 different sources of data to track that progress. And so one of them is the student achievement data. The other one is classroom observations. And then the third one is really a climate survey. So how do students feel in that classroom? And how do teachers feel working with one another? So it's more of a climate kind of survey. And so I think that is what helps to drive your decision-making process. You can't just look at data as in numbers. You have to really get a sense for what's behind that data and think about all the other factors that might be impacting it.
Thank you. Question 4. How would you hold educators and staff at all levels accountable for delivering high-quality, effective instruction to all students?
So first of all, I want to say I think we really need to be careful that we're setting conditions for our educators to be able to provide high-quality, effective instruction. So we want to ensure that if we're asking them to implement a new curriculum, we've given them some professional development around that. We want to make sure that as we're making classroom observations, we're paying attention to you know, what is happening in that classroom and if they have the support, the resources, the materials that we need. And then I think the way we hold them accountable is we provide frequent and really specific feedback. So when we visit classrooms, and I say every visit is an opportunity, and I don't mean that feedback has to be a written evaluation. It can be a conversation in the hallway. It can be me saying, hey, tell me why you know, you used that book with your students, or tell me a little bit more about the student who is sitting at the front of the classroom, right? So I think we want to find opportunities to give frequent feedback, but we also have to set clear expectations for what we're hoping to see the next time. When we go in the next time, if we're not seeing what we had hoped to see and we provided teachers with the training and the resources and the time that they've needed, then that's when we're really starting to say, okay, you didn't meet this threshold, here's what we're gonna do, I'm gonna provide you with additional support. Sometimes it might be asking them to attend a conference or to, share some data with you. But I think this is really important, that the way to hold teachers accountable for that high effective instruction is to know what it looks like and to constantly be clear in what your expectations are. And when they're not meeting you, you're providing that feedback, those supports, and saying, here's where we need to go if, we're hoping to get you to that level of proficiency.
Question 5. Please tell us how you will reach out to build up community constituency and strengthen relationships with all stakeholders.
So I've thought about this a little bit, and I have a lot of different ideas. But one thing that I think could be powerful would be like a district-wide newsletter where we're sharing what's happening at the school level, the district level, with all of our stakeholders. So something that our educators get, that our community members get, that our parents get. We could send them to town offices and select boards and senior citizen centers so that everybody sort of has an eye on what's happening at Quabbin. And I think in that it's a proactive approach to communicate. We're not looking for them to come to our website. That would be great. We're going to have a beautiful one in a short amount of time. But it's more of a proactive approach. Here's what's happening in our district. Here's a snapshot. I also think that just really being visible and present at our nighttime events and what's happening in the community. I live in West Brookfield and I was a principal in West Brookfield, and I established some of the greatest relationships and conversations during the Asparagus Festival each year, because that was something that sort of happened there. So I think things like a district-wide newsletter, we want to increase our social media presence for sure, so sharing out on social media. And I think it's a two-way street. So offering opportunities for conversations with the members of our select boards or different organizations. So we've built some community partnerships. Our students are struggling with sorry, I'm just making sure that's part of the question. I might be a little bit off, but our students have been struggling with mental health, as you know, and we're really struggling to find resources to support them. So, I reached out to neighboring communities, we found some partnerships, and they said, we'll prioritize your kids. So I think it's really having a proactive approach, being present, being visible, and not letting that take a backseat, especially for me, where I haven't been part of this community, right? As far as having grown up here, had my kids here, or any of those established connections. I think that'll be really important for me to attend some select board meetings, to make it a point, to make an appointment to meet people, different things like that. I'd love to also do some drop-in office hours.
Okay.
People don't always take advantage of them, but I always like to offer things like that.
Yes.
Hey, Colleen, you're halfway through.
Hey.
Yes. Question 6. What is your vision, thoughts on the future of Quabbin with reference to financial sustainability and sound educational programs?
So my vision is to continue to offer robust and diverse programs. I think that's really important, and I honestly think that is something that Quabbin is really built upon, and I do not want to lose sight of that. What I think we need to think about is we know our budgets are going to be challenging continuously until things change. So what I'd like to think about is, are there any opportunities for efficiency? Is there a way to partner with any other school districts or talent organizations, different things like that? We wrote a grant last summer. We wrote a grant, and it was really we had this idea to establish like an innovation type of center over at New Braintree Grade School. And we partnered with 2 other school districts, Narragansett and Mahar, to write the grant. You had to have a commitment from one another. And our idea was to be able to bring high school students together to give them more diverse opportunities. It could give them a location to learn together, and we all wouldn't need our own separate programs or separate equipment because they'd be housed in one. So I think different opportunities like that. Certainly, we have sought out a lot of grants in the past few years. We've been successful in getting grants. That has certainly allowed us to do more than we could have without that money. And I think we just have to be really responsible decision makers when it comes to budget. I think we really have to look, to your point about looking at the data, I think we really have to look at all aspects to make sure that we're making the best decisions possible so that we can achieve our goals in the most effective and efficient manner.
Thank you. Question 7. Given the stress in the lives of young people today and the social, emotional, and academic pressures they face, how can educators in general, and a superintendent in particular, have an impact on the emotional well-being of our students?
I think that our educators, so I just want to sort of start with this. I mean, our educators impact the emotional well-being of our students every single day. And I think something that I think about a lot, I guess if you ask me what keeps me up, this is probably it. I'm always thinking, are we doing everything we possibly can for our students? And right now, our students are struggling with mental health. We've gotten data from our students that shows that they are not feeling as connected to school as we really want them to be. That being said, our educators are under a lot of pressure themselves, knowing that our students are dealing with these challenges. So, I think back to when I was in school, and, my teacher sort of stood at the front of the board, and every one of us really, right, was like writing, and it was, you were an outlier if you weren't paying attention and you were sent immediately to the principal's office. We know that doesn't work, right? So we've changed. What is concerning, or what I think is challenging, is we want our students to achieve academically. We're pushing them, we're teaching the standards, we're holding them accountable, right? But when we see a child, we don't know if the next thing you say to them is going to be the thing that causes them to fall apart or get upset. And I think our educators are facing that each and every day. So one of the things that we've started to implement is around this culturally and linguistically responsive teaching. And I'm seeing it make a great difference in our classrooms. Our teachers are taking risks. I see teachers who are really sort of straight up teachers, and they're clapping in their classrooms and they're doing different activities, right? And what I want to say about those strategies is those strategies help you leverage the academic content in a way that allows kids to feel safe and supported in your classroom. So, a simple activity might be something called, Four Corners, where we're asking students who agree with one statement to stand in this corner and another statement over here and another one over here, and then they sort of talk amongst themselves. So you've done the sorting for the students. They don't have to worry about who am I going to talk to. You've put me with someone who already thinks like I do. That feels good to me, right? And then you can leverage those conversations about the content, things like that. So I think that is one thing that we've done. And I think that is how a superintendent and educators can help support. We want to think about what are strategies that we're putting in our classrooms? What are programs that we're implementing? And then really, what are our expectations for our day-to-day interactions with our students? I don't walk down a hallway without saying hi to every student that I pass by. I just think those little small things are really important, and it helps kids feel like you're recognizing them and you're there for them.
Questioning. What are the essential elements that you believe are necessary for all students to be academically successful?
I think we have to be able to differentiate our content in our instruction to meet the needs of all of our students. I believe all students can achieve at high levels if we give them the proper supports and the right instruction. We want to make sure that we are providing lots of opportunities for students to practice and make mistakes. If we are giving them challenging material and we want them to achieve academically, we want to make sure that we are not saying, oh, yep, you didn't get it, right? But we're allowing them to go back at it, to try again, and with feedback. So same thing as I alluded to with educators, right? It's about the feedback. It's not just about the teacher that I said good job, right? But it's like, tell the student what they're doing well. So maybe they didn't understand that whole problem, but what about it did they get right? Tell them what they did well, and then show them the next step, right? So I think that that is really important, that we really have to differentiate our instruction, provide multiple opportunities for students to succeed, and really meet them where they're at with the supports that they need.
Yeah. Question 9. As the interim superintendent of a regional school district in Massachusetts, what are the greatest challenges to the district, you, and the staff and students of the QRSD, as well as the 5 district towns?
I think one of the challenges that we face as a district is part of it's our rural nature, right? We're very spread out. That offers challenges and limitations to some of the things that we do. Certainly, budget and funding is going to be an ongoing concern. I think as far as the staff and the students, we expect a lot of everyone within this district, quite honestly, right? So we are asking, and this has become even more true probably since COVID, but we lack support for mental health and social emotional, outcomes for kids. So our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, even student to student, they're faced with challenges around emotional well-being. And I think that's different than it was previously. And we just don't have the resources. So I think that's a great challenge for us as a district and for our communities, and our staff and our students. I also think that education is ever changing. I believe it's the second most researched field behind medicine. And we're always pushing forward, and that's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. But we have to decide what's the pace that we can accept change so that we're moving forward in a thoughtful way that gets us the results we want. We want to be careful not to jump on every new bandwagon or initiative, but to really be thoughtful about what's going to make a difference for our students and our staff. Right now, it's high quality curriculum. It is all the rage. They're offering grants right and left for high quality curriculum. If I'm an elementary teacher and I teach math, science, social studies, literacy, and I get a new literacy curriculum, it's going to take me a while to learn that. And it's going to take me a while to implement it really well with my students. So we want to be careful that we're not giving a literacy curriculum one year and a math curriculum the next year, but we're really being thoughtful around what our goals are and what it is that we want our outcomes to be. And we're making decisions about the pacing of what we're implementing. Now, that doesn't mean we go slow at all, because sometimes you got to do it. So I'll give you literacy as an example. We were, and I've shared these at school committee, but our results for our students as readers were declining. And so in the data, you could see it early, but I knew our teachers had received really wonderful, robust professional development. And it made them better teachers of literacy in so many ways. But the curriculum we had didn't address foundational skills for our students. So we had a team, we worked with the team for a year. We talked about what we were looking for in a curriculum program. We had a curriculum team, we piloted some programs, and we purchased them last year, and we started to implement them this year. Now, one of the things that was a key factor was getting teachers to understand how students learn to read. So I don't know about the teachers in the room, but I certainly didn't have that kind of training in my teacher education. And it was really important that teachers understood the science of reading to be able to implement a curriculum that had the foundational skills in it, because many of them we knew hadn't had that training. So along with implementing a new curriculum, we implemented training on the science of reading. Now, I could have implemented that training the year before, and some teachers might have thought that, felt a little bit better. But the challenge with that was they would have been learning about instructional practices for reading that weren't aligned with the materials they had, and I think they would have gotten really frustrated. So we did it all at once. And we just said, here we go, we're off and running. And they have been amazing, unbelievable, trying new things, learning along the way. But the conversations are starting to change. So when they look at student data, they're asking different questions. They're looking at that curriculum with a more thoughtful eye because they've put together the learning that they've had previously along with this new learning. And so that's just sort of an example of going slow and sometimes just having to kind of jump right in. I don't know if I answered that question or not. We can give it another go if you want.
Thank you. Question 10. What does strong school-based leadership mean to you as a superintendent? What is the proper balance between school-based management, central office supervision, and school committee policy making and oversight?
So strong school-based leadership, what that means to me as a superintendent is leaders who really have strength, not only in the daily management and operations, knowing how to build a budget, knowing how to work on schedules. That has to be really strong. I also think that they really have to understand teaching and learning. If this is what we do and we want academic outcomes for our kids, as I said earlier, every conversation is an opportunity about teaching and learning. So to have administrators who can walk the walk and talk the talk for real, like administrators who can give feedback, who've stood in someone's shoes, who could jump in and assist with the lesson is amazing. And I think the other thing that is really important for strong school-based leadership is someone who understands how to really manage people and to lead people. So what are the skills you need to get your people on board with you to create this culture where everyone is kind of rowing in the same direction? So there's research that supports this idea of like collective efficacy as something that gets really great student results. And the idea of that is we are all focused on the same goals. It is apparent in everything we do and say, and we make our decisions based on the outcomes we want. And the power of it is that people believe in one another collectively so they can achieve those results. And I think that is what makes a really strong school-based leader.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
And what is the proper balance between school-based management, central office, school committee policy, and oversight? I mean, I think we work together, right? And you guys are the policy makers. I think as a school committee, you create the conditions and the policies that allow our students and our teachers to do the important work that they do. I think that's really important. I think that central office, and I say this, just remember where I came from, right? So teacher, coach, administrator, I think the role of central office is to support our schools. I really do. I think, it's how can I help? Asking questions, how can I help? What do you need? What's going on? I think that support is really important. But I also think you got to have a push, right? So what are our goals? What are your school goals? Are we reaching those goals? And what are we doing about them when you don't? So how can we solve that problem? How do we work on this together and collaboratively so that we can make strong outcomes happen? I think that's it.
Thank you.
That concludes the 10 questions.
Oh,
So,
wow.
very good. And before we do an opportunity for a closing statement, it would make sense that if anybody of any committee members have any follow-up questions, fine. Lathan.
So it's kind of a follow-up to two.
Yep.
And I kind of have an A and B.
Oh, that's okay.
Your indulgence.
Absolutely.
But if you don't, it's fine too.
No, yes, sir, no
All
problem.
right, so the A. So if the Colleen Mucha of tomorrow is the interim superintendent, what happens to all the stuff that the Colleen Mucha of today has been working on these past years?
I've given that a lot of thought, and what really made me hesitate to apply for the job, right? But this is what I've learned. Honestly, this is something I've learned is, I don't want to use this term, but everybody's replaceable in some ways, right? So I think that's important, just to note that like other people can do the job, but I think we will need a plan. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. We're going to have a new director of student support. We have more summer programs than we've ever had before on deck. And I want to be able to support that position and the person that goes in there. But we're going to need to support it. Do you know what I mean? Like Joe is there, he can offer support. And we will continue all those good things. Laura Holbrook is amazing. And honestly, the whole central office team is absolutely amazing. So I think we'll we're gonna figure it out. But I have to realize that I can't be the one to sort of do it anymore, and we won't let anything drop, I promise.
Okay. So the follow-up, the B question, and if you don't have an answer, I can appreciate that, okay? Don't feel compelled. So once again, if you're the interim superintendent and you've now been an interim for a year, and we do our, the whole seeking superintendent again, and once again, I wouldn't know if you would put in for it or not, but if you put in and did not get it, where did we go from there?
That's a great question. So what would be important to me, so I'm actually really glad you asked this. What would be important to me would be the opportunity to go back to the position that I currently have. So I want to just sort of say two things about that. I promise you, even though this is an interim superintendent, I won't treat it like it's a one-year position. I see further beyond a year, and I will treat this so that we are moving down the road, not short-term, but long-term. So that's one thing I want to say. I think the other thing that you should know about me, because I think this is, I hope this is true, and I say it all the time, position does not matter to me. If I can be making an impact on kids, that is what is most important to me. If we go down a year from the road and you say, you know what, it's just not for you, I am not going to hold a grudge. I'm not going to go looking somewhere else, but I would just ask, if possible, if I could go back to the position I'm currently in.
Skelly.
I liked very much, this is a question for 9, but kind of goes along to what you're talking about, differentiating instruction for our students. So with the regional school district, you have 5 districts, right? And everybody has their own priorities and their own needs. So as a superintendent, the first part of that is how do you kind of balance out the needs of those, and then how would you deal with conflict? So we're in the middle of town meetings and just had one that had a lot of conflict.
So as far as balancing the needs, each elementary school is really unique. I think we do, speaking from a curriculum, a teaching and learning perspective, I think we really try hard to have our teachers really in lockstep with one another. They have a lot of grade level planning time across the district. They're using the same materials. They have the same goals and priorities. As far as, town meeting and conflict, I have had some town meeting experience. So because I was in a regional school district before, we always faced the same challenges, except it was 2 towns. So in some ways, it was better because it was smaller. In some ways, it was worse because if you didn't get one, you didn't stand a chance, you were, done. But, I think listening to understand, like I talked about before, right? So if someone is at a town meeting and they're, asking a genuine question, or even if they don't ask it in a genuine way, just trying to find out where it is they're coming from. A lot of times, and I think this is true of the town meeting, certainly town meetings I've been to, people don't understand. It's a complicated process. The way we fund schools is complicated for people to understand. And when you're in a town meeting, most of the time, you have more of your senior citizens in that room than you do often of other townspeople of different ages. And certainly, it is hard for people to think about, if their taxes are going to go up or whatever those impacts are. But I think something that I actually, funny story, but I went to the airport very last minute, and I usually always bring a book, but I didn't. So I stopped in one of those stores, you know what I mean, at the airport. And there was a book on the shelf, and it was called How to Get Anyone to Change Their Mind. So, I'm married, I picked it up. But no, I picked it up because I am really fascinated sort of by that aspect. And so it actually is filled with really interesting stories and strategies about how sometimes it's not just about saying why we need to do something, but highlighting what's the impact if we don't do this. And something I think about for our communities is our job, what I hope we can do for our students is give them such a connectedness to our schools and our communities that they move back here. That's what we want. If they don't feel like they had a great school experience, they're less likely to come back and move to one of the Quabbin towns. So I think that's something we have to think about. The other piece of that is we want to educate our kids so that they can buy homes and be productive citizens in our community. And I think if the townspeople, if we had more conversations around, I think the other night, towns want to know what's your long-term plan, what's your long-term budget, right? We need to flip that a little bit too. And what is their long-term plan and long-term budget? So if we teach our kids to be entrepreneurs and they decide to move back to town and they start a business, how does that benefit the town? So it's not just about us and what we're doing. It really is a cycle and we're all really important to it. And I think there are ways and strategies, and I'll let you read the book. It's so interesting. It actually starts on a chapter where they talk about people who hold hostages and how to get them to release the hostages. And I mean, there's just so many great examples that are actually very applicable to the work that we do. So I was pleasantly surprised. I haven't got my husband to change his mind. But anyways, yeah. So I think we just have to really think differently about how we approach that. We come in the same way, you know what I mean? And so we really need to listen to what it is that they're saying and present in a way they can hear.
I kind of had a little follow-up to that myself, but I had a
Correct.
note on that question as well about the
Are you okay?
transparency.
Yes, I'm good.
You good? Go ahead. Go ahead, Deb.
Like, and I know you talked about the newsletter and social media and what are some of your ideas to increase the transparency and,
With budget
and like you said, there are so many complicated things and the information is not always accurate at the time of meeting because people are making their best judgment, I think. And so getting that information out and being transparent, which has been a problem, how would you address?
Yeah, I think in many ways, over communicating is not harmful in this case. Sometimes you don't want to over communicate, but I think that in those newsletters, we can highlight what are the programs, what are the priorities that we're working on, so people know them, right? But we don't know that they read and understood them. So offering some follow-up meetings and being proactive and having conversations early with our townspeople, town administrator, select board about what's happening in Quabbin and why. I also think that our numbers change all the time. Our student enrollment changes. We make budget decisions throughout the year because of different things like that. We are not nearly fully spent in our budget in December. Lots of different things can happen, and we have an amazing, amazing business manager, who pays attention to that, right, and is able to make those adjustments. But I would bet that many of our townspeople, our selectmen, don't even understand that's the process she undergoes when she makes changes to the budget. They think we've overinflated the budget and now we're bringing it back down, right? So I think we really have to be clear in why that happens. And Cheryl is crystal clear, right? She's crystal clear, but we don't always get the audience. So I think we have to be proactive in our approach to communicating that, whether it is setting up meetings and making time to put it in front of people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Jump
good.
in like that. Thank you.
Joanne.
I wanted to go back to the question about the data
Oh, yeah.
and using data for the decision-making processes. You talked about co-teaching, which I love. I'm all for that. But my question to you is there a district data team? And if not, would that be something that you might go forward to pursue? if, you know, the data continues to come in and we're not seeing the results that we want to see?
It's really funny that you asked that question, but the answer to is there a district data meeting is no, we don't currently have one. I do think it could really help us. So what we've been doing is at the elementary level, we run data meetings really consistently, and you're familiar with that process because I think we talk about it at school committee all the time, right? So we're looking at our student results in literacy and math, and we're making instructional changes. We're, deciding what interventions to give students, so on and so forth. We've really been trying to implement the same kind of system for social emotional learning. And we're struggling because we don't have a team in place to be able to do that. So our principals are doing the best they can with their guidance staff, and they have small school-based teams. But I think, Joanne, we were actually talking about that. One of the strengths that Joe brings to the table is he actually, in his former role, did a lot of data. But I think we could have a more comprehensive approach if we had a district data team, and then use the data team members to run some of those data meeting processes at the school levels.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Anyone else with a clarifying question or follow-up? Just one?
Sure.
Just one. In regards to professional learning, you highlight absolutely the work, not only the literacy, the numeracy, the mental health. How will you continue to build upon a culture in the district that not only, as we do, value professional learning and for all employees? I always say anywhere from a principal to a crossing guard.
Yep.
What would be your perspective to continue that we at Quabbin, as well, we believe in a professional culture of learning? How would you strengthen or enhance that perspective outside of the educational world?
Yeah. I actually think we just talked about this. So we were going into negotiations with office managers and different groups like that. And we talked about, well, what are some of the trainings that would really benefit them, and do we provide that? So that is something we definitely have a plan to do. We're very thoughtful with our paraprofessionals and our tutors and folks like that to make sure that we are giving them what they need, because their role is unique. A lot of times, some of our support staff are the people who are on recess duty, right? So getting them some CPR training, allergy training, things like that is really important for that work group, but they're also the people who are in our classrooms. So thinking about what the professional development is that they need when they're in those classrooms. I think that what we maybe haven't had a strong plan for in the past was thinking about our administrators, to be honest with you. So we typically provide our administrators with a mentor, but we don't do a tremendous amount of leadership coaching here in the district with them. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about. Sheila and I went to a conference maybe 2 weeks ago, and there was a woman from a company called MITRE. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but anyways, she was saying that they have a system for building the future leaders. And I love that idea. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about, especially as we're searching for a superintendent, right? Like, how do we build the future leaders of Quabbin? And what does that training look like so that people who see more and want to have a greater impact can? And how do we differentiate that? Because I have some teachers that I adore in the district, and I say to them, so do you think you want to be a principal? And they're like, nope. Right? They want more leadership, but they don't want to do that. So I think that's something I've been thinking a lot about, that I would really like to try and take on.
Thank you.
We also, Quabbin offers amazing opportunities as far as reimbursement for our working groups to take different classes, for our people who need CEUs, like our speech language folks, because it's hard to provide everything that everyone needs, you know what I mean? And the last thing I'll say about it, you'll be sorry you asked me, is that we really want to leverage the people we have. So I think the best professional learning happens when our teachers are collaborating and working together. And so with the new curriculum, next year we have a really thoughtful plan about, working with professional learning communities across grade levels on common goals and learning from one another.
Thank you. Anyone else for a clarifying question? So we would like to give you an opportunity to make a closing statement as well. And thank you for 10 questions are done. Clarifying has been clarified, and would like to hear if you'd like to give us a closing statement.
I'm just trying to think what I didn't hit upon. I think one thing I want to say is that just thinking if you're in your seats, right? What is something you're wondering about me? So I think I'm good at recognizing my own strengths and my own areas of weakness. So one thing that you might not know about me is I do handle conflict in times of high stress, I think, pretty well. It's just I'm able to kind of compartmentalize and do what needs to be done. When I was a building principal, I had a really horrible thing happen in my district. I had a murder of 3 of my students and their mom. And it happened during the school year, late in the afternoon. And I learned so much from that experience about myself and about how to deal with a moment of crisis that I carry with me always. We worked with some amazing counselors that were just like, it was, you can imagine, it was everything from, are we having school tomorrow? Yes, of course we're having school tomorrow. Then what does that look like? And how do we make sure that our parents and our kids feel safe to come into the building? And then how do we communicate this message to people who are literally heartbroken, right? So, I think what I learned about myself was I know what I know really well. So I know kids, I know teaching, I know learning, I know what it means to be a parent and want the best for your kid. And in the moment when we were deciding if we were going to have school the next day, the local police chief was very much like, this is a one-off, no one else is at risk. I mean, it's a small community, like small. We don't need a police presence in the morning. And I was like, oh yes, we do. We do, and here is why. I also learned how to accept and embrace help. You cannot get through situations like that alone. And I think it's really important to know who your people are, to call on them and not be afraid to ask for help. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. We had counselors and I kept saying, okay, so I think I'm going to ask, and this is like the night before, we need a statement. So I think we need a statement. We're going to do this. And people who deal in something that is so specialized like grief can offer you something that you had no idea about. I think one of the greatest lessons that I ever learned, and it carries over into other aspects, was, you think coming to school tomorrow or that kids are gonna need all the support. I can tell you, some students are gonna need support, but other kids are gonna be saying, why are you sad today? Because they process in a totally different way. So, I just sort of highlight that because if I were sitting there, I'd think, well, how is she ever gonna lead an entire district, right? What's gonna happen to her when the first emergency happens? Or when she doesn't know what she's faced with? And I'm gonna tell you two things. I'm gonna call for help, right? I'm gonna use my people. And I will make decisions in a timely manner. And I will communicate to everyone who needs to know in a timely fashion. The night that our students were murdered, what was really important to me was being able to call my teachers on the phone and have conversations with them directly. I didn't want to send a one call, obviously. I didn't want to send an email, and I didn't want someone else doing it because when I was on the phone with them, I was gauging, are they going to be okay when they come in tomorrow? What support are they going to need? So I think that that is maybe something that you wouldn't know about me that I think I want to share.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our interview process this evening. And truly want to say thank you for applying. Appreciate your opening statement of giving us the reason. That was very, very honest and truthful. Much appreciated. And I would say from a decision-making process, we're going to make a decision as ASAP, and we'll be getting back to you as soon as possible as well. Are there any questions you have for us?
Lee kind of asked sort of what I was thinking too, to be honest with you. You know, where do we go from here if it's not all working out or whatever, right? I think the other thing I would just like to ask, and you don't have to give me an answer on this tonight, but you know, I would like some support, right? This is gonna be new for me. And so I would just like you guys to consider, you know, maybe allowing me to have a mentor, be part of a mentor program, different things like that. I think that would be really helpful for me. And then, you know, I would like to know from you as far as communication. We don't need to decide this tonight, right? Like, let you make your decision, but something I'm thinking about is how would you like me to communicate with you? What's the frequency? You know, what does that look like for this team? And what are you hoping for goals for whoever the superintendent is? I would sort of appreciate that.
That's it. Thank you.
It's a short.
All right. I'm so sorry.
No time
Perfect.
limits.
Perfect.
No time limits
Everyone was
tonight.
saying, don't let Colleen speak.
No, you did.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I think some of these are yours.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Colleen. Dr. Allen.
Yeah, I guess I have two things to say. Her interview was very good. She hit all the questions. I think she hit them well. I think she gave good reasoned answers. But my experience is interviews are pale compared to performance. I think that the 5 years she's worked for us is a much better indicator of who she is, what she'll do, how she'll do as interim, and maybe even as a candidate into the future as a superintendent. And I think she's done a fine job. Yeah. When she started, it was she, and what was that guy's name? The other guy.
The previous gentleman?
Adam.
Adam. I thought he looked stronger at the start. Even if he didn't wear any socks. But as time went on, she just kept getting better and better and better. He filtered away, and then she took the whole thing over. And she's talking about bringing in grants and education leadership and curriculum and new ideas. And much as I hate getting new superintendents, new ideas are always good. So as far as I'm concerned, that performance over the years she's been here is the key factor to me, and it's strong, and I absolutely will support her. I mean, she was very good tonight. Did a very fine job. But I think of, what was the name of our high school principal? Maureen, she had a French name.
LaCroix.
Maureen LaCroix. That woman probably gave the best interview I've ever seen. She was loquacious, she was verbal, she was capable. And it's a good thing we replaced her as principal as time went on. Yeah, so that, I don't know what your experience was.
Just knew the name, Dr. Allen, that's all.
Okay, that's a very politically appropriate response. But her performance didn't match the interview. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
Anyone else at this point? Lee?
So I don't want to sound like a homeboy when I say that. Many years I've been here, I think of Quabbin, of our district, as a well-run machine. And bear with me on the machine metaphor here, because it's better than a sports metaphor. Just like any machine, we change parts over the years. We oil the machine so it runs well. We tune it up. But the machine keeps on going. And Colleen, I think, is a big cog in our machine. And, taking her away from where she is, I guess could create some problems. As she even said, she's not sure, where it might go from there. And if you take her and set her aside and just look at it in the abstract, is it better to keep everybody in place in a district that's been well-run and just find an interim superintendent, because we're only talking for a year here, to hopefully we vet well and they manage this well-run machine, or to take, a part out of the machine, out of our machine, place it in another part of the machine and hope that machine still runs well. And there are pros and cons to either of those arguments. But to me, we're in the business of education. You can't make decisions in the abstract. And over the last 2 years, I've had a lot of interaction with Colleen. Our subcommittee last year, when we were looking to keep the 6th grade in the middle school, when we were dealing with the whole new Braintree OCAM situation, Colleen was there the entire time. And I saw her management abilities because she managed us, that whole process very well. And through the entire time, and also this year, in our collective bargaining, she's been in on most of the collective bargaining situations. Always well prepared, always well spoken, speaks thoughtfully, doesn't just throw out an answer. When we dealt with her, she took notes on the meeting, she took minutes. Within 24 hours, the school committee members got those notes and minutes. Even though we were taking notes, I don't want to say we weren't doing anything, but she really did that well. Important to me, not just for her, but kind of with anybody, is that if she didn't know an answer, she didn't try and bull her way through and kind of, shuck and jive. She pretty much said, I don't know the answer, but I'll get that answer for you tomorrow. And that always impresses me with somebody, because it's one of the things I dislike about people. The only time I really thought of as a positive was when opposing attorneys in the courtroom would do that. And I know they were beat after that. And so that's why I think that, based upon my interactions with her, I'm willing to move her from the part of the machine she's in to another part of the machine, just by, if she's willing to take that chance, then I think we should be willing to take a chance on her.
Is that a motion?
No, not yet. It's a comment. Deb? Did you want something?
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of touch a little bit about what you were saying, because I think that was a great analogy. And I think parts of the machine like Colleen need to grow. And I think she really has got her feet under her in the past 5 years to grow into this position. And maybe, you know, the timing wasn't right for her or us, or however it's gonna work out. But I think she's ready for the challenges. One of the first interactions I had with her, I had met Sheila and Hubbardston one time for a meeting for something, and didn't know Colleen was even coming. And we had walked through the whole school, and she went into every single classroom, and she was fairly new to the district then. And she would go to students' desks and the teachers, and she just, everywhere we went, she was in there. And no one really took any notice of that. And it was a regular thing. She had her finger on every aspect in a very short amount of time, but it was just the natural way she knew. And she just has such a great way about her that everybody felt comfortable. And maybe our scores of our students aren't where they should be, but I think with the curriculum and the work that she's done, I think we're gonna see those results, you know, with time. You know, we're coming post-COVID and everything, but I really do feel like you said, she has her finger on a lot of things that we really don't know about when she sits and talks to us at night. And I've just observed that from her. And I do think her work ethic is second to none, and she will do her very best. I really do think she will do her very best for this district and everyone involved. So those are my observations.
Dave, and then Joanne. Just to kind of tail up what Lee said, Colleen's been sitting in on all our collective bargaining meetings with the 6 groups, and we hopefully had our last meeting yesterday. She's got intimate knowledge of the working conditions of all the employees in the district, whether it's nutrition, custodians, secretaries, office managers, paras or teachers. She sat through it all. We've gone through the contract. She's got a lot of insight. She sits in our meetings, and she's like the 4th or 5th comment, and it's always kind of encapsulating what we're trying to say, or she may look at it a different way. And it's a really powerful thing to do, because she doesn't put herself out there, but she absorbs it and she processes it. And personally, when the presentation that was done for the school committee for the teachers' contract was Colleen, I provided her the information, she provided the structure, and we're talking about couple of Sunday afternoons. We were back and forth on email and sending documents back and forth. So her work ethic is top notch. I think she's prepared in that aspect. She understands the personnel end of the operation, the machine that Lee was talking about. And I'm going to her after whatever happens tonight, next week, I'm going to ask her to help me to structure the presentation that hopefully we'll be able to present to the school committee on the 20th, because she's got a way of looking at things, the whole picture in a much better way than I can.
Thoughtful. She's
thoughtful, very thoughtful. And I can't fault her work ethic, because she's always nonplussed. It's okay. All right. You know, there's no sigh, there's no eye roll. It's I'll do it. And I'm not looking for a pat on the back.
Joanne, and then Walter after that.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the, Deb had mentioned that, you know, the reading scores aren't where we want it to be, but that's across the country. Reading and math scores have declined across the country. So that's just across the board. I don't think it's necessarily a reflection on, you know, the work that she's doing. You know, she's a teacher superintendent, clearly, you know, teachers will love her. The other thing that I really liked that she talked about was, providing the leaders, the admin, the principals with more leadership training. Because she referenced, you ask a teacher who's been in it for quite a while, you're gonna, do you want to be a principal? And we're like, hell no, because it's just, we see the mess that it is. But she brings that aspect of providing more training in leadership. And I think that was something that caught my attention because I don't think we often hear that. We hear about teachers getting supports and, teachers getting that professional development. But what about those people that are leading our teachers? So that was something that I was really impressed with.
Walter?
First off, going on my experience from the superintendent search committee, we saw a lot of really great candidates. And I think she was definitely up there with in my estimation, with the top ones we saw. And I like the idea of sort of a continuity with somebody from Quabbin, but she's got a lot of fresh new ideas, like you said, Joanne, and she wants to work on the special ed program. She wants to, there was several things that she saw, like the reading program, that can be improved. And I think, she's taking these things and she has ideas for making us even better than we are. And I think she's going to continue the things we do well. And she's going to improve some of the things maybe we don't do so well on. And I think she's going to come to learn in the job. And I think she's well on her way to that already, so.
So a real quick comment that I thought when Joanne was mentioning hers, she's positioning herself to bring up the next superintendent, like with the leadership, and that it was clearly her intent. Like she's setting up systems, and that's what a good leader does, right? They set up all of these systems as someone that steps into their role can take care of moving forward. And she's in her system. She's bringing up the next leadership of the district, which I think is fantastic.
I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak if they so choose to. Let me see if there's anybody else. First announce. I just don't want you to make a motion yet. That's what I'm going to do. Mark.
Yeah, I personally think that she did a moderately good interview, but the bottom line is I learned more from people at the table.
Exactly.
About the interaction with Colleen, which impacts my thinking process.
Yes.
Quite honestly, more than the interview.
That's fine.
So,
Good. I'm glad.
That's what
I'm glad you're saying that.
I just have to reiterate what Lee was saying too. It's just scary to fill that hole when she moves up, because she is phenomenal at what she does. And that's just a scary thing. But I think she knows that. She would, hopefully pick the right person.
Anybody else?
I think to go on that, I think she's gonna be phenomenal in anything she does.
She's a worker.
She is. So, we lucked out with Sheila.
Right.
And I'm almost feeling deja vu.
All over again.
And that's kind of just my kind of points is we know she was a curriculum person. So wasn't Sheila, Dr. Muir. Remember in that, same with Dr. Muir had to learn. Some of my perspectives here are she's a known. She has a nice temperament. I like her style, her language, and her temperament. I've seen her not only here, but I've seen her in collective bargaining and other environments as well. She honestly believes in high quality instruction and what high expectations for kids and staff. She can read, listen, and learn. So when you ask about what you learn from others, I think she does listen, lean in, and she'll also learn. To me, she has a handle and a sense of the district. And I just wanted to go back to that person that when Maureen Marshall left, somebody you had for 30 years, you had then who was the curriculum person behind Maureen? It was Dr. Muir. she will make those adjustments and that support that she needs. But again, she will also listen, learn, and move forward to what those other functions of dealing with 5 towns and the other part of the leadership. Yes, she's on the ground level. Yes, she's been at leadership level. And now she's at the district level, took a district. She left a principalship to get district experience. So when you go back to the level of competency and understanding from a district, so those are there. So I just wanted to share those points that my observation, and something that I like to hear too, is if it's truly a continuous improvement model for all of us, it's also a professional learning environment. And if we believe that, and we live, listen, learn, and acquire those skills for what's right for kids. Yes, student achievement is important. We know that. That's what drives us. We know that. But we all have other responsibilities for this district, and safety is always number one.
And I think she was a little apprehensive at first to go for the spot because of what she was doing. But I think now she can see the bigger picture that I can maybe do more because of the work I can do. So I respect her for coming. I think it's great.
I was shocked that she's only been here 5 years. I thought she had been here like 20 years. The way she talks and how comfortable she is and all of her knowledge of the district. I was shocked. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I mean, so if that says anything.
Just as an observation, if we leave that piece, that part where it is, that part needs to grow and is eventually going to get worn out here in Quabbin and seek other opportunities to grow. Because someone like that can see the big picture and the overall district needs. And I really believe she spoke from the heart at many times. And I truly believe that she goes home every night and stays awake thinking about how she can serve these kids better.
Good. Dr. Allen? Oh,
No, well, before, you're gonna make a motion, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, so before he makes the motion, I just want to say, I don't want you to take this personally, Mark. I like the way I give Deb the edge on the question. Read it. You have to help your game a little more.
I like feedback. I like feedback.
No problem.
Dr. Allen?
I move that we offer the interim superintendency position to Colleen Moore.
Second.
Second. Any further comment? Roll call.
Dr. Allen?
Hell, yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Liliana?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Wigler?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Dave?
I move to allow the chair and the vice chair to begin the negotiations with Colleen.
Second.
Okay, second. Any-
I'm sorry, what was the motion? Did you make a motion?
To begin negotiations with Colleen.
Negotiation. Oh, okay, yeah.
You're in the vice chair.
Did we set the terms to her interim?
Is this for a year? Is this for an indeterminate amount of time?
This is for a year. This is for a year.
So July 1, 20.
July 1, 2023
June 30,
to June 30th.
Should that be part of the motion? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a further question. And I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but say she likes what she's doing, we like what she's doing. Do we have to go through that whole process of interviewing 20 people
No,
We don't.
to keep her?
No, we don't. We as a committee can make that decision.
Okay.
We could do it, well, like we did with Sheila,
Correct.
in-house.
Or you can even potentially appoint. Technically, we're offering a 1-year interim superintendent position to Colleen Mullah. Anything during that time, you can change your perspective. You could do a full-blown search, you could do an internal search, and technically you can even appoint that interim.
Yes.
That's the committee's will.
This is her tryout.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
I think the rub is that the ideal time to start looking for a superintendent is, I think, September.
That's too early, no. It's more like October, they start in November.
Well, October, but anyway, she'll she'll just be in the job. And we don't know, we won't know for sure then whether we want to do a full-blown search, which would be the time to do it, or whether we want to wait, see how she works out.
But that's our decision as we go through. We can do that. We can have this conversation.
We'll have school opening in a little idea, maybe.
But we still have the facilitator under contract, right?
Correct.
We do.
And so we have a freebie, so it's not gonna
Correct.
cost us anything.
No.
If we go forward.
No.
Correct.
And
MASC is still with us. They are still available for whatever our next, they would have assisted us with this, but we decided to go internally, but they are still part of the quote included that they would stay with us until the superintendency was filled.
And so if we were to go forward in October, whatever, and in January, February, maybe we decided that, okay, we want to go with our interim, we could just cancel that, no cost to the school committee at all.
Correct.
So there's no downside, I guess, in a way to go forward when it seems logical to go forward, even though in the back of our minds, I guess, we'll be looking to see if we stay in-house. And I think that, the caveat there is, we can't, the expectation shouldn't be she's just going to slide into Sheila's shoes and everything's going to be hunky-dory. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs, and we have to calculate the downs as well as the ups, and not just, if there's a down, say, forget it, we got to get somebody else. I mean, people need time to grow in their jobs.
But Sheila had those as well.
Even if we had hired a seasoned superintendent to take, there would still be the same learning curve of our that no matter what the experience or the background, we're gonna have to probably deal with some of it.
Yep.
So that motion was made and seconded. For us to be able to enter negotiations with Colleen. And roll call.
Dr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps?
Yes.
Mr. Walden?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Cartier? Yes. Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Collier? Yes. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitworth?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, keep everything in your folder. We'll pass everything down.
Oh, you want it in a folder?
Why not?
Let me do that folder.
You can live in the folder and pass it down. I'll entertain a motion to keep that if you like.
Yeah, move adjourned.
Is there a second?
Sure.
All right, and